Welcome to Designing Hollywood. I am Philip Boutte Jr., and I want to introduce our next guest, or my guest today. She is one of my friends that I've had since the very beginning of my career, a mentor, a guide, but also her attention to detail is, I would say, one of the best that I've seen, and it's unmatched only by her sense of humor. So I want to introduce the director of Warner Brothers costume designer, stylist, and supervisor, Miss Tangi Crawford.
Hi, Philip.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's exciting to be here.
So I want to get out of the way that we normally do the boring question first, which is everybody wants to know, which is just how did you come to this crazy thing of costume designer? How did you come into the costume department?
Oh, that's like hard and long because it's been so ongoing. But I think for me, I was always fascinated by people. And I remember, kind of being enthralled by them where I would see them. I couldn't, as a kid, go to a restaurant because I would just be people watching the whole time. Mm-hmm. And when my parents would take us out of town for a road trip on a Saturday or a Sunday to see my grandparents in the country outside of town, we would take an adventure every time, go a different route, and somehow I would come home on a Sunday night and be found playing in the family's dirty clothes pile to try to recreate looks that I saw. So somehow people have always captivated me, what they wear, what they look like, what they're doing. I don't know why that's been so fascinating to me, but literally one thing led to another. I was working in a men's suiting store at 16.
Wow.
A big retail career ever since then. And then, fell into making commercials back in the 80s in sort of like the Chicago, New York, Puerto Rico, Cincinnati market, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
Cincy. And then film came right after that. And it's just been, entirely opposite of my education, but something I've always pursued as a career.
Was there ever like an aha moment or a moment where when you started to work in costume where you were just like, this is exactly what I should be doing?
I don't know that it ever came to this is exactly what I should be doing. Right. It just seemed like the thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm compelled. I'm still compelled.
Yeah.
Which is why I am doing what I am doing today. There's still a force about it that drives me, that I find fascinating, like daily. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't see something that makes me go, wow, or makes me stop and think about that.
So it continues to just kind of evolve and change and grow as like organically, basically.
It does. And I think that's, how my career has kind of progressed. I've just gone from one aspect of it to another aspect of it to another aspect of it.
Is there any, just in general, when you're thinking about the job as a whole, or any challenges that you normally face or things that you try to overcome? Like, do you feel sometimes that you get fatigue or burned out or creatively and you're trying to like recharge? Like, how do you approach that if that does happen?
I mean, the simple answer to that is time off. But
yeah. I think that's literally the best answer we've had.
I mean, we deal with people. Our job is so much people and creative people. And you're entertaining concepts and you're entertaining possibilities. And that's all very invigorating and stimulating, Like you think about if it's something I can think of, why can't I achieve that, And you're doing this all against a wind-down clock, typically in production or even just on a daily basis. My clients now are former me's that are literally like running in to sort of see what they can find that tells the story and can make it happen in a very short amount of time. So, you're still dealing with adrenaline all day long, every day. That wind down clock seems to never go away. And at some point, I think that was the only antidote I found was time off and like the antithesis of the city life, which to me is the country life. I spend a lot of my downtime, where I can actually hear flies buzzing, and the birds tweeting, and it's just all green and there's no, sensory overload. It's just nature.
That's been one of my favorite things of this job too, is talking to people especially in different avenues or different facets of the job, and learning that like a lot of our answers are the same, albeit they connect. Like I know for me, I get asked this question a lot as an illustrator, and just kind of like getting burned out from going from project to project to project and trying to figure out how to switch genres quickly. And it's either the same thing. I usually need time off, or I need time to travel and learn, like you said. So I need time to take in life again, and then I feel inspired to put something else back out. So it's like the exact same thing. I wanted to find out from you, let's just start with the basics. So it's like, how did you come to your current position as the director of Warner Brothers Costume?
You know, I was minding my own business one day at Warner Brothers, and I had just finished wrapping some additional photography, as we say in the biz, on a Robert Downey project. It was called The Judge, and Elaine Mazer, the former head of the department, was there, and she just kind of caught me in the middle of the hall outside the department one day, and I was just wrapping up stuff on the floor, and she said, I don't know if you heard, but I'm retiring. And I'm like,
yeah, like stay away.
It was words I never thought I would ever hear her say. She'd done such a beautiful job at the studio getting that department up and running, and she was just such a force and so good at it, and just somebody you always associated with Warner Brothers and always thought would be around.
Right.
So anyway, she told me that, and I said, you're gonna make me cry. But anyway, she said, I was wondering if you would consider throwing your hat in the ring. And I'm like, for what?
Like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
For what? And she's like, this position. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, it never crossed my mind, not for like a nanosecond. And, I said, I sincerely appreciate that you think that I would have the, wherewithal to kind of step into your shoes. But I said, really, probably not. And then, I kind of went away, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought of like how much I had respected her and respected her in the business even before she took over at Warner Brothers. And I thought, maybe she's trying to offer me something here. Maybe she sees something that I don't see. So I went back a couple of times to talk to her, like one Saturday, she met me there, and she said, I've been successful because I feel that the studio has been behind this department and understands the need to have this department and to send the department through time, to carry on with it. And I thought, well, that's really positive. You want to have bosses that support you, especially if you're going to come in from freelance to a corporate environment, which was completely foreign to me and a huge learning curve. But, I thought that was good to go. And then the real clincher, she said to me, was, she said, I had the same apprehensions you do. She said, I just thought, what, I'll try it on for a year. And if I can't do it, I'll quit. And I thought, and you don't mind if I do that?
Yeah, like you're okay with me coming here and be like, no.
Yeah. And she said, no, not at all. She was, how do you know unless you try?
That's really great.
Yeah. And so I thought, well, I'll go try it on. And so I did. And here I am, 6 years later.
Wow.
6.5 years later.
I personally, I'm just like, wow, it's been 6 years, because I remember when that happened. It's like gone by so fast.
Right?
Yeah. The question then would be like, do you have, because of your background in costume, do you feel like that really kind of benefited and helped you kind of come into this role?
100%.
Yeah.
I think any future director would, most likely need that kind of experience. Simply because, the client is the production costume designer. It's the stylist, it's the ACDs, it's the supervisors. And I think understanding how they work and how they need to work and how their environment is only, really makes you more successful at trying to, shape it and bring it forward.
Now, I'm going to say Tangi is very behind the scenes. She's a very behind the scenes person, never put on the spot. But I think that what Elaine saw in you is what we all see, which is your attention to detail, which is Tangi's attention to detail is like unmatched in terms of like she really tries to focus on what the issues are, what the problem is, and she always finds the base root of everything so that she can solve the problem. Like it's like, what is the actual problem? So she's never one to swirl in a conversation of like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She's the person that centers everything and says, this is the actual problem and we're going to solve it, which based on like coming into this role, it's the perfect role for you to take because there's so many pieces. What did you say? There's like 1.2 million assets.
Easily.
Yeah. So it's like there's so many assets and so many factors and so many things to put together with having a costume, a costume house. I think it's something where you need someone that can kind of see those pieces and also knows the pieces enough to know what it is. So I liken, whenever I think of you, specifically whenever I see an idea where someone got to the core root of the problem. Like, I went to a grocery store once, and someone had decided or put shopping carts. There was a part for shopping carts in the middle of the grocery store. And I was like, how genius is that? So you don't have to go all the way back. To me, those are Tangi ideas. Where it's just someone said, it's like, we're doing this over and over. And someone was just like, I hate going back and like, I have like getting more stuff than I think. And then I'm going to go back to the front to go get this cart. And Tangi's like, well, why don't you just put them in other places of the store? That's kind of the genius of Tangi. So I just want you guys to know that this is something that I've noticed of you, and not to put you on the spot, but I think that's a quality that you have that benefits this job specifically.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I have to say you're right. No, because the first year, and they're like, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to sit here and look at this and figure out like what's not working or what could work better. And, and that's exactly what we did. I mean, I went from, I remember I used to call Elaine and say, Elaine, I'm going to need to pull 70s. Like, can you have the stock team go back and move like the 17 racks that are parked in that aisle so that we can come and pull? And, the more I got to thinking about it, I thought, what we really need is like just a pre-sort area, where I have one person who knows like all the periods and exactly what they're looking at and can kind of expedite it. And, they sort the rack, like they sort 17. It has 4 colors in it. And they sort it by the color and 17 by how it gets stocked. It goes to a costumer's desk on the floor where they size it, put it all on proper hangers. The costumer then starts at the front of aisle 17 with one single rack of 17, and by the time they go all the way to the back, it's empty. The empty gets chucked outside for the next customer to come and pick it up, and they'll start on the next rack of whatever row it happens to be. But, when I came, they were literally like had a rack of mixed items that went all over that department. And mind you, it's the size of a football field downstairs.
Right.
And they would drag it all over the place, which was the reason why nothing was getting restocked. Okay? I'm a nerd. I'm a geek, okay? So, yeah.
So pretty much it was a I Love Lucy conveyor belt pile up, basically, every single day. If in speaking to that, was that one of the goals that you had with taking on the job? Like, what were your initial thoughts or goals? Like, knowing that you were going to stop and kind of pause, what were the goals that you had just in your mind coming into this, into the job?
Really, I only had one, and it's still the same one that I have today, and that is that I felt as costumers and designers, and that we deserved more, that we deserved better. And if I could work for Warner Brothers, a studio that was behind that department, I should be able to take all of these resources and just dial them in, make it cleaner, brighter, more efficient, more effective, better service, where people could come and understand immediately with our vast offering whether we had what you needed. Or be happy to say that we don't and give you a referral and send you out the door. We have so little time. We don't deserve to climb over things, and needs to be
efficient. I think that's something that speaks to what we were talking about too, in terms of just like being in costume and kind of having like resources that feel clean and efficient and there for everyone, and then having someone that's done that job, what the deficits are, so it's easier to fix, or to really have a big think tank of ideas of like, this is what this should feel like when you're doing this, which I think is kind of hands down the experience that you need for that. I think the other question that I wanted to talk to you about was history. We were talking about just the history of Warner Brothers. There's so much history in that shop. Can you talk about some of that, with us, or share with us what the history of that shop is?
Yeah, we're going on 97 years, 98, I guess, in 2021. So almost 100 years of the collection, which is comprised of nearly 100 years of film assets, and then, adding television in the 1950s and going forward. So that is the collection. The collection I have downstairs is really not an acquired collection. It's items that come from previous Warner Brothers productions.
Got it. Okay.
like most studios, we deeply discount our productions, on the prep side, on the development side. And as a result of it, all of those assets come back to the studio. So I look at shows that have, shot, determine what items are really, that I feel are good to go forward to the rest of our base. And that's other Warner Brothers shows or third-party features or commercials or videos or photo shoots or anything. And it's the gamut. And what's so great about it is these are assets that another costume designer at some point in time has found to be relevant or camera worthy,
right? Right.
So it's almost like you can't really go wrong,
Right, because you're picking from things that were camera ready and were ready to go and have been on camera.
Yeah, and then I take my eye to that, which is, literally, I was born in retail, have moved all the way through film and done my fair share of just every style and every type. And, I say, great, that's really great for a feature. That's really great for television. I could see a commercial going for that, and I'll take it.
Now, walk us through. I want to talk about like at least what you see, because we talked about, I think, this exact image, which is tell me about this shoe wall.
Well, this is my retail years kicking in here, but I wanted to do sort of like a rolling library of shoes, and this particular shoe wall is in the collection, which is a separate area downstairs off the main floor. But I did this retail slat wall. I did some custom-made shoe racks, and at the very top you can see the rail work of the rolling library ladder. But again, like space is so important, and I spent a lot of time in Europe, so I'm very space conscious. So you can put a lot in a little space. It just has to be specific.
It's so specific, but I think what I enjoy about this visual too is not only just the organization, because I'm an organized freak myself, but the fact that when you're being creative, space is super important, right? So space also inspires. So it's like you need to have a space that actually is clear enough or like to where your inspiration can kind of come into it. So sometimes having a space that's disorganized or jumbled really kind of blocks your creativity.
Absolutely.
And I love that you've done this.
And it's one of, I get designers that'll just go into this room to look because that's exactly what it says.
Yeah.
They find it inspirational.
Yeah.
And it's like easy to be inspired in an area full of, multi-$1,000 shoes, but that's exactly what that shoe wall is.
Now, the collection, talk us through the collection, because I know it's a special place that's outside of the original or the regular stock.
Yeah, the main area, but it's just over to the left side of the department.
Okay.
It was made up formerly of a couple of prep cages and the old fur room. And so we it originally started as the sort of staging area of the assets from the Gatsby film, the Leonardo DiCaprio, Baz Luhrmann film. And so we were lucky enough to get some of that stuff to come over from Australia. And then it became sort of where we put the nicer stuff, and I've just kind of taken it to a different level where it's my original description of it was Rodeo Drive at your fingertips.
Correct.
Or I call it the 1%er room.
The 1%er room. I like the 1%er room. I like that a lot.
So it's literally, we all know stars. We all know that they like it soft and expensive. It always helps, right? In a lot of cases. But anyway, so these clothes are just too fragile and too costly to sort of take the massive churn of the football field size. And it's just a different level of production and clothing and quality. And so we've isolated them in this area that is called the collection. And, we have men's, women's, we even have children's high-end designer clothing. We have the residual furs that were left over from the original Warner Brothers collection in a fur closet.
Is that the one that's temperature controlled?
Yeah.
Right?
It's air conditioned, or what would you call it? Refrigerated.
Refrigerated, yes.
Refrigerated closet. So we basically took what was left. I mean, the furs were downsized quite some time ago.
Yeah.
But, we did keep some of the, more historic, more accessible ones in that area. And then we also have started putting in our period designers. So we'll have like Trivia in there or any commercial designers that we have throughout the stock floor, basically, just to protect that type of stuff.
And that's kind of like a special. Are there any, walk me through some of the other fun places? Because I think like what people fail to realize, especially when you're talking about a costume house, is that there's so many areas. So right now we're just talking about the collection, but what other areas can we find?
Yeah, there's a little known, I'll just start with the one that's probably the least known.
Okay.
There's something that we call the Boneyard.
See, don't you want to go? It sounds like a full treasure map, right?
And, the Boneyard is definitely off the floor. You have to ask for it. You have to, pretty much know that it's out there to be had, but that's where we keep like all of the walkarounds. They're literally in this place that we call the Boneyard. And we have tons of walkarounds. We can't put them on the floor because they have such volume to them. So we have some back there. If you don't, you ask to see the walkarounds, we'll show you what's on the floor, but we'll also tell you at that point that there's the Boneyard. Would you like to go see it? All of the, we used to have this area that actually the collection is partly made up of now. It was called the Hall of Hats, which is over on the far side of the apartment. And the Hall of Hats used to be just shelves of all of the period hats. But through reorganizing and better use of space within the department, we've been able to take the Hall of Hats and actually sink them in above all of the period inventory.
Oh, that's cool.
So like if you go to the 30s aisle, the 30s hats are above the 30s. If you want to go to the Napoleonic era, the Napoleonic hats are, now up above or very nearby.
Oh, so that's cool. So it almost like creates a visual hierarchy. When you're looking at that era, you can see a little bit of every part of it.
It kind of does. We literally can kind of go from hats to jackets to pants, to
awesome.
vest to pants. Because I kind of think that that's, again, better for the customer. It's better for the client. When you come to see a period, you want to see everything that's available.
Correct.
You don't have to like run over to the aprons to see the aprons, So I really try to just push it all in together as much as we can because, time is what we all have, so little of.
Yes.
So I kind of like to see that. And being visual people, you kind of clock it in your mind, even if you're not looking at for the 30s, but you're going to the 40s, you kind of register that there was like head to toe 30s here, you know, gowns, whatever you need. So we've done a lot of that, but other hidden areas, I would say there's a little known something called the back 40.
The back 40, yes.
And the back 40 was, kind of like a dead man zone for a long time, but we kind of turned it into, I racked it out, and it's now a place where we go to put sort of like, one is historic repairs. Mm-hmm. But the real secret sauce to the back 40 is I created this area that I call for reference only.
For reference only, okay.
Yeah, and it's, it's just a place to go and, be inspired. It makes you stop and think because, there are just these beautiful garments that have, style lines that in the I think, you would know, like in the conceptual world, you're kind of bombarded with present day aesthetics.
Correct.
And when you need to go back and kind of even create something new or even post-apocalyptic, you want to kind of look at these things or look at some of these fabrications because these mills were destroyed in the war. They don't exist anymore that produce some of the fabric that's in these garments. And sometimes you just want to see, or you want to see the color, the real color, not a printed page, third generation photocopy. It's just great to see some of these things. So
it's that tactile thing too, being able to see them and touch them and actually see what they were.
Yeah, and I just can't force myself to
get rid of them. Yeah.
We used to call it the final alteration. I haven't done a single final alteration in my time there, because I just think they're inspiring.
And then there was another, you had, you talked to me a little bit with Building 87.
Building 87. Yeah. Building 87 was a new, I really wanted, textile arts I feel are so essential and, again, needed support. And we had a bit of a legacy area there that I think was up since like Ocean's 11, I want to say, or Titanic. I'm not sure when that aging area was first established. But it needed to be redone. And so, again, with the studio's help, I was able to build sort of a state-of-the-art outdoor aging, dying facility that so far has met with, really good success. There's been a lot of well-known talent in that area that have really said that they've enjoyed working in it. But again, that's me taking every Ager Dyers space that I ever had to create in every town in the USA and kind of, just crystallize it into the footprint that I could find there at Warner Brothers. And so now we have, we typically keep a full-time Ager Dyer on staff to, again, help.
Right.
Because it's so hard for people just to find I just need like a couple of things done. I don't have a giant show with high concepts that need a continual Ager Dyer. I wanted to find a way to service those people where they're just scrambling like, oh, I need an Ager Dyer for a day. Who can I call?
Right.
And you're spending 3 hours calling 30 people and everybody's busy, right?
Yes.
So anyway, again, just to help out the biz.
Well, what I'll say is that for those of you listening that don't really know what that means, is the Ager Dyers are like these magical people that we have in the costume department that really take clothes and age them down or figure out ways to make them battle worn, or just taking new clothes and making them look like they're not brand new. Like, so they do crazy little techniques like they fold shoes and put them in rubber bands so that they get that little crease so that they look like they've been walked in, and they file them down to where they look like there's little chips on the on the edges of them. They scuff them. They put car mats with the little texture inside the dryer so that when the clothes are rolling around with them, they get beat up. Like, they do all kinds of fun stuff. So that's just a part of it. But what Tangi's talking about in terms of the space she's created for them is they do so many things. They're working with chemicals. They're working with all these different products. So she's provided a space for them that actually helps them to do their job. And that's something that notoriously, which I've talked to some of them, like, they don't always get the space, or they're outside, or there's like not really a dedicated space for them.
Correct.
So having someone in the business like Tangi that could see that deficit and fill it and fix it is a big plus. I wanted to talk to you to tell us about your workroom and the crew that you have there. Like the workroom in terms of like, it's not just
I think
stock.
there's an old picture of the workroom in one of these images, but when you think about Hollywood in the beginning of time, it didn't, there were no stores here, you know? I mean, it was a long time before Desmond's even got happening on Wilshire Boulevard, right, back in the day. And these fantasies were created, and they were created under a sewing machine. So we have that legacy. We have that legacy workroom that you can see from the 1930s on. I mean, the tables that these guys used to cut on today are the original cutting tables from Warner Brothers. I mean, they're that sturdy and that long. But anyway, so we still keep a workroom.
Okay.
We are able to do, look at this old picture.
Oh, wow.
And look at the light. Everything that they did back in the day had natural light. I mean, you talk about like a 360. I mean, and it was the best light, but this is in the early 30s, probably on 32.
Wow.
But the interesting thing is the Amy Hilker, who helped put together this session on my end, my team was telling me that on Jack Warner's org chart, the costume department was the biggest employer back in the day. Because again, they had to create all this. They got in fabrics from all over, from New York mostly, Paris, London, wherever they had it, they brought it. They had storerooms, they had button rooms, zippers, whatever you needed, and women, principally, sewed it, created these looks for the studio. And so we have that legacy in our workroom. And one of the things I enjoy doing with it is, we have the WB Archives, who has all of the historical, iconic, pieces of set deck, costume, art from the films that Warner Brothers is so famous for. But I've been doing a lot of restoration work for them in my time there, and again, that's me taking the super talented people that we have in our industry and in my department in general, and putting them together and coming back with restorations on some of these things that are really quite old. I think there's a picture in here of us working on Olivia de Havilland's wedding dress from They Died with Their Boots On.
Wow.
And we created this one.
Yeah.
That's me bending over.
Yeah, let's figure this out.
So, This was like beaded corn. I mean, it's the craziest dress ever. Like, who puts a corn stalk on
a wedding dress?
But she was the daughter of a plantation.
Right.
And this is what they decided to do. But it's pearls, like the kernels of corn.
I can see, little
seed
pearls. Yeah.
So we needed to recreate, we needed to get the dress fitting properly and kind of restored. And then we wound up recreating the veil and cap for her. And then we put his Civil War uniform back together. Yes, it's Don and I in the back. The head of our worker, Don Hook.
So the question I have then is, because this looks like a really kind of fun request, what are some of the more fun requests that you guys have gotten as like to actually do, like in terms of specialty?
Well, one of the other fun restorations that we did was one of Linda Carter's 1970s Wonder
Woman costume. Okay.
So we had a really good time with that. We took the stars off. We re-dyed her trunks and stuff to match the original color before the color changes and put it all back together. We've seen Superman in there from, I forget his name.
Christopher Reeves. Yes.
And, the things that we've done currently, Judith Bartnick just retired, but she was pretty much the person who does all of Ellen's Gracie there, because we service a lot of our shows. So, anything you've seen that's kind of zany on most of the shows could have, I'm not saying that they use us exclusively, but we do a lot.
A lot of it.
A lot of it.
Is it, and how did the specialty, how did you start to put together the specialty craft department? Is that its own kind of thing, or is it just a part of the workroom?
It's really using people's talents. We kind of pulled it together and said, why can't we do this, or why shouldn't we do this?
Yeah.
And everyone really has enjoyed it because it's just something a little bit outside the run of the mill. I mean, I wish we could do more. My goal would be to have that workroom be the way it used to be. I mean, outside of the super specialty, outside of the sculpting, the molding, those kinds of things. We won't have those capacities there, and I think there are too many people that actually do an excellent job of it, and I wouldn't dream of kind of running up against them, but I think there's so much more that we could do.
Now, who, moving and shifting into it, who are your clients? Who are the clients that you guys have? Or not by name, but by job, or
No, I mean, we deal exclusively with the industry.
Okay.
So it would be any, bona fide legitimate production, whether that's a Warner Brothers feature, be it New Line or DC or any of the new ones, the Warner Media, Warner Max, HBO.
Okay.
We do Warner Brothers Television, all of it. We do, again, commercials, videos, photo shoots. It's a great one-stop place. We have such a broad, historic overview,
And then how is the department working with those clients in terms of is it helping them kind of to flesh things out in terms of specialty stuff, or just building things, or are they doing a little bit of both? Are they pulling stock? How do you guys work with them?
Yeah, I mean, usually, we wait to hear from a costume designer, we'll want to, after, understanding a script and wanting to understand what the appetite is, what needs to be made, what needs to be rented, what needs to be purchased, those kinds of things. We'll get a phone call, can we come in and take a look? Can we come in and pull? And, yeah, I mean, COVID's put a little bit of a damper on how much we can entertain now. But that said, I'm excited to make the collection available. I want you to come and look to see if we can, help you realize what the vision is that you're seeking, So, they'll come in, make an appointment. The parking is now upstairs. It used to be downstairs. But, coming on that first floor and come through those barn doors. And, once you pass the sort of right-up check-in, check-out floor, you're headed straight out onto the floor. And when you get there, you just kind of understand the enormity of it.
How are you guys handling it? How are you handling the changes for COVID? How's that process?
I think, clearly everything is by appointment now.
Yes.
Everybody's got to, need to understand where people are during the day. There is absolutely PPE and additional precautions. And I just really wanted everybody who comes to Warner Brothers to feel comfortable, to feel protected, and to feel confident that, there's no risk of exposure there if we all do what we need to do. And so, it's really nothing more than that, social distancing, PPE, good hand hygiene, however that is. And then we try not to have people congregate on the floor anymore, we'll be happy to write it up for you, go schedule your pickup, or if you need it now, you can wait outside. We'll try to get it to you as soon as we can get it to you, that kind of thing.
And those things seem to be instrumental in getting everybody back to work, right? Like that's
100%. And I understand that they're inconvenient and they're a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I do. I totally get that. And no one wants to be doing it. But, I have to say that we came back in late May to try to clean up the department because just like everybody else, we shut down in the middle of pilot season. I mean,
Correct.
The busiest time of the year for everybody last March. And, we have been back and we have been building the number of people we can have in the building. We've been building the business back because it took people a lot of time to come back because the protocols were not in place.
Right.
And then people started coming up with just whatever their show was doing. And the next show was doing something slightly different. And the show after that was doing something slightly different. And then once the agreement was made and everybody's kind of gotten on page, the doorway is open. But through the proper practice of protocol, no one in the costume department at Warner Brothers has been impacted by the virus.
That's amazing.
And we're there every day working.
Yeah.
Which tells you it's the right thing to be doing,
That's awesome. Because I know that there's been a lot of people, especially some productions that they've gone up, they've gone down, they've had COVID cases and they're trying to kind of fit it together. So it feels like you guys are doing a really good job of keeping everything tight and together and protocol wise.
Yeah, we'd like that. And I think, testing is great, but testing is not a panacea,
Yeah.
And so it becomes the practical, everyday, common sense type things, which again, when you're running, trying to beat the clock, are not easy to do, but it's really something you must stop and do.
Yeah. Now, question, as we're moving forward, where do you see the department going, or the Warner Brothers costume department going now? What are plans for the future? Where are you trying to take it?
I think where the department ultimately will head to is a lot. It's kind of going to follow the industry. I mean, we hope to have the collection online completely in 2020, and by completely, I don't mean 1.2 million items. That would never work. But to try to have a better visual representation, because I think that the virus has only expedited people's ease with finding things online and understanding things. And it reminds me back in the old days when they first came out with the J. Peterman catalog. And people were like, oh, no, I'll never understand that drawing. But then, you tune your eye to it and you're like, I know exactly what that looks like, right?
Right.
I mean, it's the opposite of what happened to you. You've gone from illustrating to 3D visuals. And people, that's a pencil drawing?
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, oh, yeah. There's the full-blown... I've had designs where I sketch them and then they're just like, I don't know. And then I just put it in 3D and they're like, excellent. It's it's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But so I hope to get more digitized. I can see digital design coming on. I'd like to be able to work remotely with designers. Here's a sketch. This is what I want to have happen. There's no reason why you can't pump that stuff out at a distance.
Yeah.
Manufacture anywhere you want. I think that's all possible. I kind of think that the industry may harken back to the days of yore, kind of, in a way. You can create a lot of efficiencies by having several shows under one designer.
Yes.
With a bunch of teams working underneath them that are actually working to kind of execute the concepts and get them all together and get them going without kind of compromising creativity.
Right. It's it just becomes a point A to point B, and then not compromising, but also being more, just like you said, efficient. Yeah, much more efficient.
And then, one of the things that I really hope is that I hope people will kind of understand that costume houses, and not only Warner Brothers, but all of them, they are they're a green way to go.
Yeah.
You don't have to cross town in traffic at crazy hours. You don't necessarily have to go get the latest and greatest. It may already be hanging very near you, and you should go and you should take a look. I mean, it's, one of my goals since I've been at Warner Brothers is to keep things out of the landfill. I hate the waste, and I want to reuse it, especially if it's worked already once. So if I can keep it, which I can't keep everything, I want it if I think it's viable. If not, I want to find a donation partner who can really use it, and we do a lot of donating.
Just so donating out stock of things that you can no longer use.
Yes.
Like, so is that like to different partners? Is it like to schools? Like how does that work?
I literally have a resource for everything that we need to get rid of. So I have a couple of after school programs and of arts for kids that use like fabric remnants and trims and broken pieces of jewelry and things like that. I have vendors who just take fabric who are using it for training programs.
That's awesome.
Teaching people to sew or a rehabilitation program. Obviously families in need, particularly at this time, in distress. One of the funny things that happened, I had a flash mob of Santa Clauses that came to me a couple of years ago. And I'm like, what do you do with 50 Santa suits? And they weren't the poor quality Santa suits, but they weren't the really high quality ones.
Right.
They were good, solid Santas. And so I called Encore, our partners at Warner Brothers, and I was like, what can we do with this? And she said, I totally get what you mean. I said, I just don't want them to go into the landfill, and we can't use all of these.
Right.
And she goes, I'll call you right back. And so she called, and we got them distributed to Ronald McDonald houses all across the country.
Okay.
And some children's hospitals here,
Right.
And that's extra effort, certainly on my part, but
Right.
I'm compelled,
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
No, and also I love that. It's extra effort, but I think it's necessary. And there's so many things that end up coming like that ultimately, if you don't put in that effort, it just goes to waste.
Yeah, it does. And so, I just want to encourage people to come and have a look and reconsider. Buy it if you need it. Absolutely. I wouldn't tell you not to, but I'm just saying take a look, because you may find something there that, with a slight adaptation can go on and be serviceable.
Now, this is just a non sequitur question, just a fun question, which is, if budget was no issue, what's a project or something that you would personally like to work on, or to have the house work on or collaborate with?
I would say that's hard, because I think my problem is I can never say no.
Yeah.
I always want to. There's always something about it that's going to make me want to say yes. And I think that's just to be helpful. I'm just kind of that way by nature. And again, if I can think of it, if I can believe it and get behind it, I want to say yes.
We talked about this in speaking in that same spirit. You were talking about just inspiration on a daily basis. Like, so just even walking through the house, you were saying, like, you were looking at things like, what inspires you when you're walking through? You said sometimes racks, like just.
Yeah. I mean, when you go out onto the floor, we have all periods, it starts in Paleolithic and it'll go, straight through, Bronze Age, Greco-Roman, Renaissance, 17th century, 18, 19, 20, 21, future, sci-fi, post-apocalyptic. And you can go there and you just start wandering, and the inspiration comes. One thing sets off another thought, and you find this, and what about that, and what about this? And when you walk through and just see what costumers have pulled in pursuit of a concept, it's like, wow, isn't this amazing? Or, wow, who knew we had that? That's terrific.
Yeah. Yeah. Just going through and just be like a whole story on a rack, basically.
Or one of the things that we love to do is, what were they thinking? Like, what was that? What was the intention behind that? Because you get such a mashup of certain concepts and things that come back in the inventory,
So it's like getting stuff without context sometimes. Where
Absolutely.
You're like, what's that thought process?
Or where would we best put this? Where would this be useful?
Right.
What should we call this? Where should we put this? Because, what's clear is that it definitely needs a home there, but what's the best place where someone could find it and make good use of it again? Where would it be inspiring or insightful?
Do you guys ever go out, or like, is there ever points where you're just out in the world and you see something that you feel like you'd want to add?
All the time.
All the time, yeah.
All the time. But, I do there is a certain feeling knowing that everything in that shop in most cases is pre-vetted.
Right.
That's a sense of security that is hard to get with an outside collection of things. That said, we're professionals. We know exactly what we're looking at. And if there was an opportunity, I would totally hit on.
Like, yeah,
some
just items, like, yeah.
Like, right on, got it, mine, take it. So, but because we get such a volume from our shows, I think it takes most of my day to just address what is, in certain states of, it's in shipment, it's coming in, whether it's coming from New York or New Orleans or Vancouver or wherever we happen to be doing a show. It's in boxes at the warehouse. We open it up, we go through it, we sort it for whatever purposes we think it's best suited for. We have to get it to the studio. We have to get it barcoded, photographed, and inventoried. Hung up, sized, stocked. It's a big job. And, we crank through on the order of 90,000 assets in any given year.
Wow.
It's a volume equation. We have 6,000 men's suits, 10,000 women's, 15, 20,000 ties.
So many, so much inventory.
Yeah, it's huge.
So then if we're moving into thinking about just in terms of like younger people or the young generation coming in terms of like even thinking about like career paths, like are there career paths to where they could come and maybe join your team, or just in general, like what are we kind of imparting to them as far as thinking about even either joining and or what they need to know when coming to the costume house?
I mean, I think it's two-pronged. I think someone who's actually working on a show,
right.
is a little more dialed in and, kind of knows exactly what they're after. And, there's a big path for costumers. I'm hoping that, with changes in the industry and the union, because I think when I came in to Warner Brothers, especially from being a costumer for such a long time, I thought this is a university. This is a learning university.
Correct.
And I would hope to be able to train people there. And, we've talked about it many times and how we might go about trying to have some people come in to train, because literally
that'd be awesome.
All of the periods, all of the fabrics, all of the color palettes, all of the style lines, they're in a footprint that is accessible, any time of the day.
Right.
And to do some kind of training where, you would have so many hours at this, so many hours at that, and even just the care of costume, I mean, you need to know how to take care of fabrics, how to properly hang things. It all adds up. It means something at the end of the day. So I'm hoping that there'll be an easier avenue toward that in the future.
Yeah.
We are a union shop, which does mean that you have to
be in the union.
Get in the union, be in the union.
Okay.
But after that, we have people that work on several different levels in the department and do several specialty areas.
That's helpful to know, too, because I know a lot of the times, I mean, we're all I think this is an industry-wide thing, but I know specifically in the costume department, there's been lots of talks of trying to figure out how to mentor and train people coming up so that it doesn't feel like it's so inaccessible.
Yeah, I really would love that. I was looking at the mentor program. I think that 705 was advertising, and I thought that sounded like a brilliant idea, and to do more of that. Because I think, where I have been in my generation of the costuming business, it used to be my job to take the shows to places that didn't have costumers and make costumers out of the people.
Right.
In the area.
Right. So just like, okay, you're a costumer now. Yeah.
And so you're spending half of your day, or, really 100% of your day, doing two things: educating people that you have working for you so they can help you deliver, a quality product in the right way, and actually executing the needs of the show.
Correct.
Tough.
It is tough. I know I specifically kind of felt that way. I remember just starting out, I was having to learn not only how to illustrate in the styles that were needed, but then also learning costume. And so it's kind of like learning it all at the same time. So I was learning, the terms and then the fashion terms for stuff and then how stuff, and then having people yell at me and say, cut it, it's going to be cut on the bias. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like not understanding any of that.
I kind of remember when we first met, you were kind of in that phase, And
yes, me and Tangi met in 2008, I think, on the Madonna tour with Ariane Phillips. It was the Sticky and Sweet tour. And I had no idea what I was doing, and I was stressed out, and Tangi, same thing. Tangi was just like, look, this is what it's going to be. This is what it is. And she was like, she held me through the whole thing and actually taught me a lot about the costume department. But yeah, I was learning, and I just remember not knowing like anything, but also trying to like work and do what I needed to do. And I think that that's a hard balance because you're doing it all at once. And then once you have the experience, I think it is important to then go back and teach it to other people.
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, I'm such a big, believer in that. I mean, again, I think it's because I'm still so jazzed about it. I like to share. I like to tell people why. It's important to pin it there and not there, or to hang it with this hanger or not that hanger, I mean, all of these things have lessons, and some of those lessons have a little pain associated with them.
Yeah. But for good reason. I think it's like you also I think ultimately in this business too, I've learned a lot of the times you don't know what you don't know. So it's really good to to be able to take in and be humble enough to take in information from people and then recognize that they're also trying to help you or telling you, you may not know this, or it may be not coming across, but this is how we've done this and this is why. And then sometimes the hardest part, I think sometimes in film too, is that we're all so busy and we're moving so quickly that it's just kind of like, okay, do this and I'll explain it later, but this is how it has to be done. I think that also helps in terms of just trying to kind of figure things out as you're moving forward, because it is hard to do those two balances. But I want to be able to somehow bridge that together to where we're getting people to be able to come in and train in an aspect where they're learning at the same time while they're also actively producing good work. I think that that's a hard balance for all of us to try and figure out how to have.
I would agree with you, but I think it's absolutely doable.
Yes, it's doable.
I think it's doable.
See.
And necessary.
Yes. And again, I'll go back and say if there's anyone that can do that, it would be Tangi. To actively, I think film, this is something that I've said before, but film actively becomes a growing conversation. So we're all working on different projects. It's like teams. It's like, okay, well now we're on the same team. Now we're doing this and that. Everybody's kind of going and kind of building their team for each project. And there are the conversations that kind of swirl. It's like budgets and time and all of those things. But it always helps to have the person that says, okay, look, I've been having the same conversation for 2 years. Let's solve it. Let's get it done. and that is Miss Crawford.
Well, I see time and money, and just like you said before, space. They're actually, if you see them in the right way, very creative, incentivizing parameters.
Correct.
I mean, you can go on and on and on if time and money is not an object, right?
Right.
But it's almost what you get in that crucible, what that chemical reaction is deep down, when all of this force comes together. I mean, that's when you get like, wow, I wasn't really, who knew? But it was pretty amazing. Now,
the only thing I want to leave it with, is there anything that you want to impart onto our listeners, like especially ones that are trying to learn or are coming into this as a career, like just some advice that you might have given yourself, starting, or, any points of inspiration?
Really, I would say keep coming,
Yeah.
I mean, don't stop, don't take no, don't think that you can't. Get in there and try it. I think the industry is big enough and broad enough, and there are different styles of working and different ways of working. And, for me, I can always say that I was a feature girl. There's something that I like about the bell curve of production, as opposed to what I call the hamster wheel of television. And that's in no way demeaning. That's just me, with my language.
Yeah.
describing, kind of the flow to a day. But, there are just so many things that you can do, so many ways that you can help, so many ways that you can be inspired and be creative and participate, that, it's going to take some trial and effort, certainly effort.
Yes.
To find where you're comfortable, and there is a place.
Yes.
For everyone, That's what I think is really fun about our business.
Yeah.
And we're a bunch of people that are driven to achieve a vision. And it can be a shared vision, certainly, but how you arrive at it is the alchemy. It's the wonder of it, and it's got to do a lot with the people that you work with their skills, with their willingness, with their honesty, with their directness. All of the things that I think make any relationship. See, so then what I'm hearing is that everybody, she's saying to work hard, don't give up,
and be a self-starter.
Right on.
And try to learn. Those are all important things, and make sure that you guys are tuned into that. I think the don't quit one is really important because a lot of people quit before they get an opportunity to really get started. But also, like you said, keep coming in, be inspired, go to the costume department, look at the things, look at what exists, look at things that people were pushing, outside of the norm. And be inspired.
Yeah, I mean, go to the costume houses, go to all of them.
Yeah.
And take a look at what they have to offer and the range of things that they have to offer. And there's no way you can't be inspired, and there's no way you can't know where it is.
That's also something that we were talking about too, is that people forget it's like a toolbox. So it's like if you going to all the costume houses over time, you start learning what they have, and then you'll remember those things, and you can kind of compile them together into one big kind of skill set, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. So I want to thank Tangi for coming today. I want to thank you for for being with us, and I also want to thank our sponsors. And I want to encourage you guys to also to follow Warner Brothers Costumes on Instagram and Facebook. And come back and see us again. And thank you, Tangi, so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Philip.
Okay.
Thank you to our sponsor, Eddie Marks with ragvan.com. Ragvan is Hollywood's favorite place to rent fully equipped, high-quality trailers used by the entertainment industry to transport costumes and garments to and around filming sets in Hollywood. Also, thank you to our viewers. Be sure to follow Designing Hollywood Podcast on social media and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, and our YouTube channel for complete past and current episodes.